My name is Majel Hein. I'm the Director of Financial Education for the Marine Credit Union Foundation, and I operate that Finding Home program that you see that logo up on the top. Um, you are here today to learn about finding your money balance. And maybe some of this information is going to really help you, or maybe you can take it off into like the rest of your life. You know, people that you have in your world, and maybe they're struggling and be able to kind of help where they're coming from. Today is not about credit or debt or budgets, even though I don't like the word budget, kind of sounds like diet. It's about finding someone's balance, because you got to find your why before you can even manage your money in the first place. So to tell you just a little bit about me, and I know it seems like it might be a lot, but that's me, of course, and then my husband, Ben, and our little daughter, Althea. She's 5 now. She's my hero, and she loves Paw Patrol. I've been a financial counselor in the area for a little over 10 years. Yeah, I ran consumer credit counseling service of La Crosse, and I've been with the foundation here since 2018. And as you can see, I've had the benefit of being recognized for what I do by my peers, which is kind of cool. You know, do what you love, get recognized. That's nice. And sometimes people are like, how in the world, what do you study to become a financial counselor? You can't go major in that in college. It's not a thing, being a financial counselor. So it's actually a series of education and certifications to be able to help people move forward financially. Essentially, whatever's out there, I'm digging into it and I'm learning more about it. The one most recent, and frankly, the one I'm most proud of, is the Certified Financial Therapy Practitioner certification. Took me 2 years to get. But that's what today is about. Our experiences inform our behaviors around money, right? Whether they're in childhood or adulthood or, and all of this is actually driven by my experience. I have lived experience of my own financially. I've had the 490 credit score. I've been sued, on the verge of eviction, had the lights turned off, worked 2 jobs for almost 2 years, no days off, breaking down, crying, just living the grind. I know what that's like. And I forgot that I had control over my life. So it very much fuels my passion to remind people that money is one of the things that we have control over, right? Now, have any of you, Zach, you can't answer any questions. Have any of you 3 seen this wheel before? No, this is your life in a wheel. Did you know? All the components of your world. And you can read physical, social, intellectual, emotional, occupational, environmental, financial, and spiritual. And I can argue that financial touches each and every one of them. The American Psychological Association did a study in 2022, and they asked America, what percentage of you are stressed about inflation right now? In 2022, what percentage of America do you think was stressed about inflation? So close. Huh? 86%. 86%. Everything comes back to money, and the economy not so awesome in 2022, right? The American Psychological Association did a study in 2017. How was the economy in 2017? Better. Better. What percentage of America do you think was stressed about money at that point? Not inflation, money in general.
About 60%.
Very close, 72%. So still 3/4 of America, though. So even when it's good or not so good or bad, we're still stressed about money because it always comes back to everything. So people feel shame when it comes to money because they don't know necessarily what decisions to make. We were talking about how we don't know what we don't know, and we blame ourselves or other people blame us, but there's a lot of emotions mixed up in money. It's so much more than what comes in, what goes out. So there's this concept of financial vulnerability. So you see the tip of the iceberg is often what people see. You're late, you don't have the best credit score, you're not communicating with your creditors. We see that tip of the iceberg, but we fail to recognize what's happening underneath that financial vulnerability piece. So maybe someone's health isn't awesome. So that's impacting their ability to be financially healthy, or maybe lack of knowledge, behavior skills, social networks. Maybe you don't have a support system and it's only on you. It's an individual level. Societally, financial regulation is a really big thing. Today, with inflation, there's a big jump in the gig economy, right? Who here orders DoorDash? You know, yeah. But I can hop in my car, go deliver DoorDash and make some money, right? And that's like being self-employed, but it's really hard for financial institutions to like quantify that and count that as money, even though it's something that you pay your bills with. It's still limiting you from being able to acquire wealth, home ownership, a new car because of that self-employment piece. They need so much stuff because of regulation. And then certainly community level. The one that you might recognize up there is what we call predatory lending. Payday lenders. The highest interest rate I've ever seen on a payday loan is 901%.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Is that a $400 loan? Mm-hmm. And 900 was not in small little print. It was in big, bold letters. So the level of desperation that you think goes into somebody taking out that loan,
What's the odds of them ever actually meeting? Very low.
very, very low.
Yeah.
But we do the best we can with the resources available to us, right? You know, we got to do what we got to do. And if we can't do anything anywhere else, we got to be able to access that. But that community level, having that predatory lending out there is available and it impacts the tip of the iceberg. But that's financial vulnerability. And this is what we call a trigger warning in social service world. It's just a personal boundary thing. So what I'm going to talk about is something called financial trauma. And I'm going to go through some terms, and it could impact you individually, and it could impact you now. If you need to leave, that's totally okay. But also if you're thinking about it later and you feel like weird or emotional, maybe I brought up something in you, or maybe it's making you think about somebody that you love. I just want to let you know you're allowed to have your personal boundaries, and I don't judge you if you walk out of this room. And also remember, if later you feel something, give yourself some grace, right? So these are the important terms that I want to go over. The first one is material safety. So these are the things that we need to get through our day. Chuck, what do you need to get through your day?
Retired.
What do you need?
Food.
Food. Okay. Shelter. What do you need to get through your day? Utilities, absolutely. And yes, sometimes people go to like the basic needs, naked and afraid route, right? I need food, water, shelter, clothing to like get through my day. Frankly, part of my material safety is coffee. Is it a need? Yeah, it is to me. It's my material safety. Zach, you've heard me a bunch of times, but what would you add to material safety for yourself? Soda, there you go. But that's the thing about material safety is it's different for everybody. It's what you need to get through your day, whatever that may be. And then we have things that get in the way of material safety and also our ability to build wealth. The first is economic violence. As you can read here what economic violence is, an example of economic violence is a toxic employer. Who here has ever experienced one of those in your life, your career? Like an employer that you just can't handle working at? Mm-hmm. and you're no longer there, right? Well, you're retired, but you left.
I also,
Yeah. A toxic employer, whether you're being harassed, discriminated against, micromanaged until your brain's gonna explode, is so difficult to navigate. So difficult. And you have barely any recourse depending on the company. You can't go to a manager because the manager's like buddy with HR. Maybe it's a mom pop thing and you can't do anything. No one's gonna change. And that's what makes it toxic, right? No one hears you. So then you have to take it day in, day out in order to keep material safety, right? And then you go talk to somebody about your spending plan, or maybe you need a little bit of help and they're like, gosh, you go to Starbucks too much, live on your budget. Why are you spending so much money? When they didn't actually take the time to understand what that person's day looks like, to understand that maybe Starbucks is literally their only sunshine in the day. They deserve Starbucks. They're putting up with kind of a tough situation. You know? Economic violence can cause those types of coping behaviors. And then we have chronic stress. Sorry, my water's all the way over here. But that impacts you physically. What percentage of America do you think loses sleep over money? Wow. I made an impact in the last one. It's actually only 34, but that's a really good percentage. 34 is a lot of people if there are 330 million people in America. So they're losing sleep, or we have chronic headaches. It's up in our shoulders. You know, we're smoking more, we're drinking more. It's impacting our physical health, the stress of finances. And then we have financial abuse. So the most common thing that we think of with financial abuse is usually something called elder abuse. So when somebody is gaining power and control over somebody who's on a fixed income, receiving Social Security, more vulnerable in mindsets, and needs to lean on that person for support, and that person's taking advantage of them. It should also be noted that 99% of domestic violence situations involve financial abuse. 99? Yeah, they go right together. It's physical and financial and emotional and psychological. And then the other one that flies under the radar, because you can see forms can be subtle. That is actually a loan denial. And the wrong type of loan denial. So say that my car broke down, right? And I go to a lender because I don't have the resources to fix my car. I've been trying, but I don't have the resources appropriate that are there. I go to the lender, they put my life in an application, and they spit out a denial. And they say, sorry, you're denied. Have a good day, build your credit. Oh, don't forget the danger of payday lenders. What am I supposed to do? I need to keep my car so I can go to work to keep material safety. And this lender was concealing information from me. They didn't tell me how to be approved. They didn't tell me how to build my credit score or what I needed to do to get onto a journey to be approved. They just said, you're not alone, see you later. Oh, and I'll kick in a little shame here at the end and say, don't forget about payday lenders.
now, one thing, how long would that take to get that training
For a lender?
for the person?
Oh, not long at all, even an extra 10 minutes. Zach over here is a consumer lender for almost 4 years or over 4 years. I mean, how long would it take for you to provide somebody just a smidget of how to be able to be approved in the future? How long? Yeah. Yeah, we don't know what we don't know, right? If you don't learn it at home, you don't typically learn it anywhere. And for a massive part of the population, It wasn't in school and teach this stuff in school. It's now required in school, so that's good. But it's not, wasn't
The hair.
longest time. They were like, just figure it out. Um, and then, like I said, they unintentionally boot in what they call education, but really on the back end, it's shaming. So shaming someone for even contemplating a payday lender because they need to fix their car because they've gotten denied at the financial institution and they don't know how to be approved. Shaming is it's most of the time unintentional, but it comes from a very old school way of thinking of like, pull your bootstraps up, live on your budget, be restrictive. 95% of diets don't work when you try. And everybody gains the weight back within 5 years, all of them. So being restrictive does not improve things. It doesn't create actual behavior change. And shaming doesn't help people want to do that. So that's trauma, that's financial trauma. And then there's some signs of financial trauma that people might see in themselves or we might see from somebody that we're talking to. Negative thought patterns. So it's always me. Why is it always the next thing? Nothing is ever going well. That's a trauma response. A very, very short attention span. Often, like if you think about the financial industry where maybe miscommunication happens because maybe someone's providing information, but they took like 20 minutes to provide that information, and somebody heard the first minute and the last minute. We have to break things up into bite-sized pieces. And if we know that we've experienced financial trauma and we have that, we need to break things up for ourselves in bite-sized pieces. I was just talking to a client this afternoon and she's like, we're using cash and we're not using our debit cards for the rest of the year. And I'm like, okay, can you give me a week? I'd like you to not use your debit card for 1 week and see how that goes. Build on top of it, right? Those small successes work. We see environments as hostile. I mean, this is sometimes where people are incredibly emotional of what's happening. There's some victim mentality. That environment of hostile can also happen when we're projecting our trauma onto somebody else. We don't want to take accountability for that, so it's so darn painful, it's much easier to push off onto somebody else. That's a trauma response.
Then, of course, the government, they were talking the first of the year, they're gonna lower the interest rate or the prime or whatever it was.
Didn't happen.
And then, well, then it was gonna supposedly in March, and now they're saying maybe in another 6 months, and it's like, I think we're gonna do a darn thing. And it just keeps going up and up,
Yeah, kicking the can down the road type of thing.
Based on the interest rate or something, we went from like maybe 2 or 3%, we're at, 8.5 now. It's a huge difference. It's
Oh,
what
yeah.
it is, it's a home equity line of credit is what we had, It's awful. And then,
Yeah.
and it's just like, it's only gonna get worse. I mean, they're not doing anything to make it so it'll come down. They just say that they're going to, and you get your hopes up and then doesn't,
Yeah.
But anyhow, that's just my little.
And in ways, that creates a trauma response, whether we want to, use that aggressive of a word, but it does, right? Because you don't believe, you don't lean into it. We have something called foreboding joy, where Brene Brown coined foreboding joy, but like we can't celebrate that interest rates went down because we're like, well, they're just gonna go back up. Like, when's the other shoe gonna fall? So we can't lean into joy because it's our most vulnerable emotion. We don't want to fall from grace, if you will.
Yeah, another thing was the price of the cars, when you can get the parts and stuff, and it's just like, will those come down ever? They're not gonna come down either.
Yeah, it creates a frame of thinking that it'll be very difficult for you when things do change.
Yeah.
Because you won't be able to lean in and trust that.
Yeah, because, well, of course, we're old, but they have have not too
It's a secret.
fancy a cars for about what we spent on our house, you know?
Mhm, yeah.
And it's just like, when a friend of mine told me that, you know, cause he'd gotten his, well, they're about 10 years older than we are. And
Mhm.
he had gotten his loan before, you know, we had gotten ours, and he's like, you know, it'll be way beyond. I'm like, yeah, right, it's really gonna be that much for a car, but it is, you
Yeah,
know?
these types of environments are what creates trauma,
Yeah.
right? And it puts us in certain mindsets. You think about people who lived through the Great Depression. I mean, and let's hop into that, right? And some of this will come in later, but that actually forms what are called money scripts. Those experiences. So how you behave around money and your thoughts around money are based on those experiences. And they're certainly sometimes unconscious. We just have them sitting back there, like how we think about money or how we view money. Um, and I've already said they're, formed potentially through trauma. A lot of them are formed in childhood, though. We learn it at home. And they're very deep and resistant to change. So if we talk about the Great Depression generation, they reinforce a behavior and limit their choices by stashing money in the walls of their house, burying it in the backyard, hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're limiting their choices by not investing that in Apple or Google or whatever the next thing that a financial investor would tell you to put that money into to make more money out of your money. They're limiting their choices, but because they've been through such a dramatic time in life and they watch their parents go through that, they're not doing that because they don't trust the banking system. I have much more security here knowing I have cash in my wall than I would ever put it with a financial advisor. But these deep ingrained behaviors very much limit our choices. One of my favorite sayings is the behaviors and habits that we use to survive will no longer serve us when it's time to thrive. It's a good one, isn't it? And these are the money scripts. And I just want to put out there, I didn't make these up. Dr. Brad Klontz came up with money scripts, oh gosh, probably 30 years ago. I highly recommend the book Facilitating Financial Health. It is a textbook, so it is that fun. Facilitating Financial Health. Yeah, but it's a good book. I am a nerd, but I liked it. So looking at these money scripts and just in the spirit of time, what I'm going to do is describe to you what each of them are, because then I have a little interactive activity right after this for you. That's why I gave you notebooks. So, well, let's start off with money vigilance. Buying, sad. Spending money creates some residual guilt, some anxiety. We're very money conscious of where it goes. Actually, most millionaires fall into the money vigilant bucket. They're very conscious of every 10 cents, right? So none of these money scripts are bad, but a money vigilant person who isn't understanding that that's what they are and doesn't find a balance can lean into some behaviors that probably aren't the best for them. So maybe they're doing what's called underspending. That sounds like a good thing, right? Underspend. But underspending can look like, I can afford it, but I'm not going to go hang out with my family right now. I'm not having experiences because I want to conserve and save money, and almost like a level of hoarding money. Money vigilance can also look like forgoing on certain types of insurances. Doesn't benefit me now. I want to keep this money. I'm not thinking about later. So I'm not going to have car insurance. I'm not going to have life insurance because it doesn't benefit me now. Well, you gotta, from experience, they know. They know. And money vigilance can also look like somebody who's taken on debt, believe it or not. Because you have money in your savings account, and that feels awesome. We feel secure. And we don't want to pull money out of our savings account, so we choose to put it on a credit card at 27% interest, you know? Because we want to keep that money in the savings account. That makes us feel good. So we take on debt so we don't have to remove money from the savings account. I know, it's kind of a weird thing, but that's what happens. Money worship. This is my money script. Spending money makes me happy. Probably why I'm such a good financial counselor, right? I like spending money. That's okay. And I know that about me, so I can create balance. Of course, money worship, when we spend, like the thing that can get out of hand if we don't recognize that, is overspending, creating too much debt. It's an instant gratification thing. I chase after the dopamine kick. I get it. But if I recognize that about myself and have a lot more reflection than the average person who isn't a money worshiper, I can handle that and not have too many Amazon boxes at the house when it's a poor week, right? My husband was here, he'd be like, this is true. But it's okay that I'm a money worshiper. And my money vigilant husband doesn't understand that, but we actually balance each other out quite well. But if you have a relationship where it's those two different personalities, it can either go well with communication and create balance, or it can go very, very poorly. I mean, we know money is one of the biggest reasons for divorce. Gonna go down here to the corner, money status. So what we have and the money that we have equals self-worth, like makes us feel successful. If we don't have those things, we feel like a failure. There's actually a colleague of mine, his name is Ben Wickerham, and he allows me to share. He gave me permission. But I was going through this presentation with him, and he told me that money status was his money script because of how he grew up. He didn't grow up with a lot of money, but the people around him had money, and he didn't feel as successful as they were because he didn't have all of those things. And now he knows as an adult that that's not actually true, right? What you have doesn't define your self-worth. But he said it always haunts him. It's something that lingers back there that he can't control. So he actually didn't even recognize that about himself until we started talking about this. Statistics show that a lot of underrepresented communities fall into that money status as well. So the Black, Indigenous, people of color, disabled, homeless, justice impacted community, underrepresented communities tend to fall into money status because we don't have control over a lot. If anything, it falls into like that societal, community level financial vulnerability. So what is the one thing you have control over? What you spend your money on. So we get the really awesome car, even though, it's $700 a month, which is the average car payment today, 700 something. And nationally, so we get the awesome car, we have the $700 car payment, and then we're unable to save money because now we have an expensive rent, an expensive car payment, and then the rest of life that goes into it. And we're still chasing after money status, so we eat out, we like do things, right? And it's hard to accumulate wealth because of that money script, but it's the only thing we have control over. And then lastly, money avoidance. From my perspective, probably the most vulnerable population, because we don't want to even look at it, at our financial situation. I think about anything that makes you incredibly sad or incredibly mad. You probably want to push that thought away. Do anything else? Well, I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to look at the thing on the PowerPoint, or I'm going to do this. We push those negative thoughts away, even though we think about them all the time. We never spend the time to digest them. So a money avoidant money script is somebody who is living in financial stress, but we're constantly pushing it away. It's that you only live once mentality. I can't worry about that now. This thing makes me happy now. It's the money script that's going to spend all of their tax returns on like TVs and fun stuff for the kids because it feels good, but I'm going to push away all of these negative things because it's too overwhelming and frustrating to even think about right now. So money avoidant personalities need a lot of space and time to come to their own conclusions, if you will. So we plant seeds versus pushing things onto them. Thoughts about this? Do you know your money script now? Got to pick one. Everybody has a tendency. And with that, you each have a notebook. And I only have 3 slides. I think it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 questions. I don't know if you've seen this one, Zach. This might be new for you. Dun, dun. It's not the Mad Libs one. Right. So I'm going to go through a series of 10 phrases, and they come in packages of 2 because they're actually screenshots off of an exercise that I use with households. But here's the first one. And notice there is no middle bubble. No one can sit on the fence in this exercise. No one. So the question is, when I have spare money, I tend to spend or save. And you can be like, save, or really save, or really spend, or I tend to spend, but you cannot sit in the middle. Everybody has a tendency. I want you to write it down. Which one do you tend to do? When I have spare money, I tend to spend or save. When making a major purchase, are you debt willing? Are you willing to put it on a credit card, take out a loan, or are you like, no, Dave Ramsey, all day long, I'm buying this in cash. If I don't have the cash, I don't buy it. So which one are you? You don't need to answer this directly out loud. It's just a part of a reflection activity.
Actually, I have a really weird one because if I have extra money, I spend it, but I spend it on like reducing payments.
So you
Like-
spend
like
it.
We got our tax refund, so I paid off this card. It was like 4 payments from being paid off.
Sure, so you choose to spend versus save. There's nothing negative about spending or saving. That's something old school again, and like spending is not bad.
The interest of those 4 months.
Yeah, spending is
But
not
I
bad.
spent it because I used it to pay off the card.
Yeah, so if you tend to, instead of keep that money, you spend it, and you spend it in a way that you want to, that makes sense to you, then you spend.
It's not like I buy furniture. Yeah, well, it depends. Of course, that's, all new.
Well,
furniture
that's where
might
you
be good
come
for
from though,
somebody.
right?
Yeah.
So
So
spend
then I
is just
spend, right?
spend. It
Okay.
doesn't say
Okay.
spend on concert tickets, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever we
Or
define,
fancy
because
vacation or whatever.
so that
Yeah.
this is a beautiful thing about this presentation is because these things have emotions. They have shame connected to them. We spend money. I think that we might have a money vigilant personality here, right? And that's okay. Are you a millionaire? Are you a millionaire?
No.
The money vigilant? Like I was talking. I prefer spending on myself or others. Most of my purchases are planned or spontaneous. Oh, that's me. Just with this one, so, what I do is I work with people for a really long period of time as a financial counselor, typically anywhere from a year to 2.5 years. So somebody might say they have a money vigilant money script, and then they say that they tend to spend. Isn't that weird? Instead of save, they tend to spend, even though they seek having security. And most of the time they are spending because they don't have enough money in savings to feel like it's worth it. You know, like, why should I lose weight? I'm already 100 pounds overweight. Kind of that mentality. So this is always a fun activity for them to reflect back on that. You got to start somewhere. I view money as a source of stress or enjoyment. Believe it or not, your income level has nothing to do with that statement. And when we think about our financial future, are you positive or negative? So pessimistic or optimistic? And that's when some of those experiences come in. You might not trust the government right now, so we're feeling slightly on the pessimistic side because we don't know what's going on. The environment creates that. I view financial success as a product of hard work or luck. And when thinking about money, I focus on the now or the later. So the present or the future. So totally. Financially vulnerable populations spend a lot of time here. So I can only do what I can do now. I can't think about tomorrow or the next day or the next day. So when people are like, have a goal, save, they're like, great, I need to pay the rent now. Let's do now. I got fires. Money becomes this game of whack-a-mole. You're like, bah, 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 bah. And not the fun one at Chuck E. Cheese. And I'll also say, so Zach and I both do an activity with financially vulnerable populations that kind of talks about like their initial thought when it comes to people who have money. And the statement is, rich people are rich because, and it's like blank. And the financially vulnerable populations that we talk to overwhelmingly say hard work. And then the other statement is the poor are poor because blank. And I hope this is still true, but overwhelmingly the response to that is they're lazy. So they're internalizing, like, I'm the failure. I am doing things that are not good. This is my fault. I'm lazy. It's an interesting thing. And then the last two, growing up, money was scarce or abundant. And my earliest memories about money are unpleasant or pleasant. Yeah. And this will be on recording if you think that anybody in your life would benefit from some of those reflective questions, but we kind of just think back into ourselves to find our why, you know, why am I doing what I'm doing? One. Now, money scripts can lead to what are called destructive behaviors. Again, they're not bad, not bad. And I started talking about some of them already. Money scripts aren't a bad thing, but destructive behaviors are. These are the things that hurt us, regardless of what our money script is. So I talked about underspending. We talked about overspending. Financial denial. We talked about that with being a money avoidant. If the monster gets so big in the closet, it's incredibly overwhelming. I have opened suitcases of unopened mail with clients before. Suitcases. Where they're physically shaking or have to leave the door open because of the anxiety, like they don't want to be closed in. So financial denial can be debilitating. Financial enabling. What does it mean to enable somebody in a negative way?
They can't actually afford it.
Yeah, and you are helping them afford it by providing of your own self and your own finances. Well, right now in society, we see a lot of that because Gen Z can't move out. Housing is super expensive, and they can't move out. And if we don't have the right structure around that situation, just that age group, as somebody who's been that age and made very poor decisions, uh, we can run amok when we're that age. So financial enabling is when we are helping someone to the point of it being detrimental to our finances. You know, and when we're in those types of situations, it's so delicate because enabling to stop doing that, feels selfish. Like, oh, I'm not helping them. And usually that person that you're enabling like knows your buttons to push too. Like how to get you to help. Where's that little guilt button that I can push on? And it's may or may not be intentional, but they know how to get what they want. And then also another piece of enabling, you see this a lot with like addiction, is it's feels selfish to not help that person, but then it also creates a lot of anxiety. Like, I don't want this person to be homeless. It makes a person feel better to enable someone personally, that they're not watching somebody else suffer the consequences of their actions. So it's a very difficult thing, but financial enabling can be incredibly destructive. Co-signing, all that kind of stuff. Financial infidelity, we talked about how money is one of the root causes of divorce. Secrets, I mean, infidelity with a partner, sleeping with somebody else. It can be the same thing with finances. Secret debt, secret savings, secret anything, like not communicating. That is a destructive behavior because that communication needs to happen. When I ran consumer credit counseling service, there was a lady that came into my office where her husband didn't know about the $90,000 in credit card debt that she had created. $90,000. And how terrifying it is to I need to tell this person now. I realize what's going on, what's accumulated, and all the shame and guilt to bring that up front, up forward. It was such a destructive behavior to hold it back. Where if we just maybe told them when it was 2,000 to stop keeping secrets, it would have been better. I will share that they are now debt-free and they didn't divorce. He was very supportive. But it was incredibly terrifying for her, and she wished that she wouldn't have committed financial infidelity. And then we have something that people don't talk a lot about, but that's financial enmeshment. We are involving our kids in our financial stress. You're 15 and a half now. Go get a job and help me pay the rent. You need to tell your, mom or dad, let's just pretend in this scenario, it's mom. Tell your mom she didn't pay child support when you get over to her house. We're involving that kid in that situation, involving a child in adult discussions, and it writes on their money script. And we don't think about that stuff when we're doing it, because maybe we're being money avoided. We don't want to have that conversation. And then we do have some, I think it said mental tools, but some things that I just kind of want to explain how sometimes people think about money and how our mental states can be. So this is called a dialectal behavioral tool. It's to explain what's called urge surfing, actually. I am the only financial program in the tri-state area that has a financial trauma coach on staff, and I'm very proud of that. But anyway, Miranda gave me this. So this is a really helpful tool that I use for people because it provides them a visual of what's happening. So we get triggered by something, our urge rises, it peaks, and then it inevitably falls. My favorite example right now is, I will share, I am 39. Soon I will be 40. It's just right around the corner. But Facebook thinks I'm old. I don't know what has triggered Facebook to think that I'm old, right? But anyway, this must be a magical time in my life, and it's all over my social media because I'm a millennial, so I have social media, right? And there are like these wrinkle ones and stuff to put under your eyes. And I watch these videos, right? Because I'm triggered. I'm feeling, all right, like what happens at 40? I don't know. I'm 39. Like, I don't know. So I'm triggered and I'm like, do I need to buy this $26 wand? Like, is this something I need to be proactive about? Well, I don't know. So that urge to buy that $26 wand rises. And I won't lie, Chuck, it ends in my Amazon cart. That's where it lands. It is in my Amazon cart when the peak is so, so high. But because I know my money script and I reflect, I know that that urge will fall. I don't buy it. I have not bought that wand yet. I will not buy the wand, but it has ended up in my cart a couple times. That urge will fall. So then what I do, knowing that this is such a trigger for me, I try to avoid social media and unfollow all of those things and get the ads off of my Facebook so it stops triggering me. But we know this little thing knows everything about us. Just the fact that I'm talking about it right now, it will show up in my Facebook today. And it will. It's creepy. And I know that, so I'm getting ready for it right now. I will not be on social media at 10 p.m. tonight because it'll trigger me. But we got to recognize our triggers that cause those urges, because when you get to that peak too much, it's just so difficult to deal with. It's such a high point of stress to be at where we just want it to go away. And that's why we end up buying stuff we don't need. That's why the beauty and weight loss industry makes so much money. They're just triggering people. That's all they're doing. And then we have this other one. It's called the wise mind. So in financial world, I say reasonable mind is a budget, right? Emotional mind is no budget, YOLO, you only live once, right? I'm gonna do it now, live fancy free. So often with budgeting, just like dieting, we weave from one side to the other. So I spent too much money, I have to restrict. This really stinks, so I'm gonna go over here now and just spend money that makes me feel good. I spent too much money, now I feel guilty, I have to restrict. So we just end up yo-yo budgeting, just like people yo-yo diet, where people forget that you can do both. You can live your life, enjoy it, and meet your financial goals at the same time. It just requires balance, right? Hence the name of this presentation. And these are some of my favorite reflective questions when people are yo-yoing back and forth or trying to figure out why they're spending money or where they are. I use these on a personal level myself. So one of my favorite tools as a financial counselor is providing people with what I call walking around money. It's a nice way of saying I just gave you an allowance. You know, here, take this cash, you can go blow it. Here's your balance. Say it's 60 bucks a pay period. Mine is 40. But when you go over that $60, so say you got $4 in cash left and you're standing in the mocha line or Starbucks line and your coffee's about to cost $6 and you're going to be reaching for your debit card, I want you to ask yourself these questions. Why am I here? It very well could be, I want coffee. How do I feel? I feel tired. Is this a priority? Yeah, yes, it is. What if I wait? Well, I'm going to be tired. How will I pay for it? I'm going to use my debit card. Where will I put it? In my belly. You know, I'm going to drink this. But that reflective process itself, and it's proven over and over again for me that when households do that, they don't go to the coffee place the next day because they're reflecting on the series of events that brought them to the coffee shop. I didn't set out my kiddos' clothes. They didn't sleep well enough. I didn't put them to bed early enough. Like the series of events that created them not being able to make coffee at home to end up in the coffee shop. And then they fix that the next day, only because they reflected. And it's not to shame them, they still bought the coffee, but all right, they only overspent by $2. Can handle that. So now that people, and hopefully you too, know your mindset about money or a way to talk to somebody so they can discover their mindset, what do? Well, then they make their plan. You can't create a spending plan until you know why you're doing what you're doing. Now it's time. And I say spending plan, you can think budget too, it's the same thing, but you can only start creating those plans when you truly understand why your behaviors are the way that they are and what your money script is, so you can build balance around who you are as a person. Like, I can't have the same plan as somebody who's money vigilant. It just doesn't work for me. I need my wham. I need my mocha coffee, Zach. So they make their plan, and the biggest piece of that is paying attention. So that's why I pass out this notebook during this class, because often people think, budget, plan, I'm going to put down all my bills that are due in a month, and maybe throw in gas and groceries. And there are some other tools that people can use as well. But if you had to guess, what is the most common row that I put in a spending plan for people in this area where they spend, well, we'll say a healthy amount of money? Oh, that's a really good one. I do put that row in quite often. More common than that. Think like every day.
What'd she say?
She said sports activities.
Oh, yeah.
Sports activities.
Yeah.
Where do you go? Well, in this area, maybe once a week. Some people go every day. Any guesses, Heather? Quick Trip. It eats people's money, man. $3.15 here, $10 there. It goes so fast, and those things just add up. And $3 feels okay. I can afford $3, but $3 several times a day, all month, is like $400. And then they're like, oh, wow. So it's just that piece of rising awareness. So where is your money going? Because then you find your opportunity of where you can create cash flow. It's not about me saying, stop going to get coffee, stop going to Quick Trip. It's somebody's decision on where they choose to find their balance. If Quick Trip's the requirement, that's great. Where are you going to cut back elsewhere? That's your decision. And it's all based off of their money scripts and goals. And with that, if you or anybody that you know, you think reaching out to me would be helpful, I'm free, and I'd be happy to chat with anyone.